Hello. I've realized I'm not all okay looking. But that's because this is a very special video and I'm gonna be 100% real with you guys. And so you have to see 100% this. Um, I do have a very important story to tell you guys. And I do have to read it off of here. Otherwise, I just can't. I can't. Um, but to tell this story properly, I have to start from the beginning. At 3:30 p.m. Texas time. I got onto Omegle like I normally do. Except little did I know how different this day was going to be. I got onto Omegle very, very upset. Um, Normally I would have got it in a hold of Lord Commander Jojo, but I'm always afraid that it's gonna bother. I'm always afraid to be a bother, and I didn't know if he was at work. And last thing I want to do is get him fired. Anyways, I got onto Omegle, and I ran into this guy, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be a typical. He's gonna want to see my boobs. I was very much surprised because he stayed and he talked to me about 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 the importance of living, about the importance of being there and not giving up. And he wasn't about to let me leave without knowing I was okay. He told me that too, because he's been in the same situation and he wants to help people, and he helped me. Um, as the day went on, I had a few rough patches, and I myself have had a history of struggling with both self-harm and suicidal tendencies. And so it had been a very hard day for me. Now I'm going to jump ahead to somebody I will never ever forget. And this is where I have to start reading. Otherwise I'll choke up and forget everything. Caleb Miston is a 17-year-old musician, athlete from Oregon. He's a sweet boy with a tragic story. I met him on Omegle. He had a sign stating, "How should I kill myself?" Obviously, my first response was, "Don't, no." And while I was telling him why he shouldn't, he swallowed rat poison. Rat poison can take up to 12 hours to kill a human, and it involves a very painful series of events leading up to that. This includes and is not limited to vomiting, migraines, convulsions, and shock, as well as liver failure. Once I discovered what he had done, I told him I would not leave. I was going to stay until the end, no matter how hard it was. And I had every intention to stay the full 12 hours. I didn't know how it was going to end on my part, but I knew that Caleb was not going to be alone. I sent him both numbers for poison control and the suicide prevention hotline, both of which he refused to call. One would save his life at that moment. After each hour he would count down. 11 more hours. 10 more hours. 9 more hours. As the hours went by, I was crying at every few minutes. This conversation started roughly at 2:30 a.m. It was hard to keep him talking, and I tried. But every drawn-out pause sent me into a fit of panic and terror. And I didn't know what to do. I was completely lost. Because here was this boy who's just dying. And I couldn't talk him out of it. Now, normally you'll see me wearing fingerless gloves. Be it these ones or those interesting, lacy, black, corseted ones that are new. I was not wearing them last night because it was just, I was getting hot and then cold and yeah. Most people believe my gloves to be a fashion statement. That's not entirely true. Remember me saying I had a history with self-harm and suicidal tendencies. Earlier that day, I had cut up my arm. And sometime during the conversation, he looked towards my arm. Because I had my arms drawn up, similar like to this. I had completely forgotten they were there. I have had a long, long struggle with self-harm. And he asked about it. At first I brushed it off as nothing, telling him that wasn't the point of the conversation. But he was insistent. So, we discussed it. And at the end of the discussion, he told me I had to find help. This, of course, started an argument because he was the one who had just swallowed rat poison. I was still trying desperately to get him to call the hotline. Asking him, please don't go, don't go. You can't let it end this way. Suicide is not the answer. You see, when you commit suicide, you're not getting rid of your pain, you're giving it to somebody else. Eventually my roommate, who you met in the last video, Integra, joined in the conversation. She was sitting right next to me. Caleb began comparing himself to a grain of sand. I sat on a beach that was only one mass of sand for one beach. And all the beaches were on one planet. Planet was one planet in this solar system. Solar system was one in the galaxy. And the galaxy was only one in an infinite number. Now, I could not argue with this because we had actually just talked about that earlier in my last astronomy class. He said one grain of sand is insignificant when compared to the mass of the world. Why is he any different to that grain of sand? I told him, I said, it is just one grain of sand, but it is a part of many. And each grain of sand has a purpose. You just have to look for it. He didn't understand, and I told him. He asked me, where do you look? Where do I look? Everywhere. You look all around you. You find your purpose. Everybody has one. He asked me what I wanted to do with my life after that, and I told him I wanted to inspire people. That's all. I wanted to help people fight. I want to die knowing my life meant something. The conversation about the sand grew on, and eventually I began talking about snowflakes. And how each one was different, and each one was beautiful. He said his death could help prevent suicide. If he died, it would raise awareness, but if he lived on, he would just be miserable. He said, I have 3 choices. I don't have to suffer. I could either shoot myself, stab myself, or I could call your hotline number. Each will have a different outcome. He said I could either die and possibly stop more suicide, or I could live on and be miserable. And I told him, you might think your death would stop suicide, but you can do a whole hell of a lot more alive than dead. This, of course, brought on another round of tears, as he had given the decision to me. I told him, I would rather see you alive, but it seems to me no matter what I say to you, it's not going to change your mind. But if it was up to me, I would rather see you alive. And then he cut me a deal. He would call the hotline if and only if I found help. This, of course, I agreed to. He called the hotline. They arrived in 30 minutes. 9 hours to go. His life will continue on. It was 5:25 a.m. The last thing he said to me before he said thank you and wished me well, he said, keep inspiring people. And then he hung up. I am proud to call Caleb my friend. I had a hand in saving his life, and he had a hand in saving mine. But the story does not end there. Because at that moment, after he hung up and I had gotten over the general shock, I was debating food, sleep, or one more chat. For whatever reason, I decided to get on one more chat. And much to my surprise and joy, it was the same man who I had spoken to first that day when I first got on. Coincidence? I think not. I told him what had happened, and then I thanked him. And you're probably going to watch this. So again, just thank you. We talked, we told him, because I did tell him, my roommate, who is not here, had a role in this. And then we said our goodbyes, and I ate food. I went to sleep. It was 7 a.m. If any of you ever feel like your existence is worthless, think of this. Oftentimes we see a mountain topped with snow. It takes many snowflakes to make it look like that. However, one snowflake could be the difference between a pretty picture and mass destruction. An avalanche. One death can cause an avalanche. We all have an important role to play in this world. And as I said before, you can do a whole lot more alive than dead. Thank you, Caleb, for allowing me to help you. It was worth it. And I am, if anything, a person of my word. I have here the number for the self-abuse hotline. I will leave the suicide prevention hotline as well as the self-abuse hotline in the description. Save them. And if you or anybody you know is suicidal or struggles with self-harm, do not hesitate to call. Your life is worth it. Thank you all so much. Love you.